further into the show, let's bring things up to today. What are you guys doing to build the portfolio out a little bit further as of today?
Yeah. So again, continuing to, I guess, first of all, I'm a big fan of Michael Zuber. He runs ORAT, or one rental at a time, and he just says every day, do the work. And so what we do is we manage and monitor our buy box on a daily basis. Now, this can be different for everybody, and I don't want it to appear to be a mountain when really it's just a small hill that you need to walk up every day. And you can do it lying in bed with your Zillow app, like saying, hey, what came on market that's in my area that I'd be interested in looking at? Put a filter in there. Hey, what's over 30 days, stale? Maybe you should start having a conversation or consider running numbers. And so you asked, essentially, what are we doing today? We're continuing to monitor our buy box. We acquired and brought on one unit earlier this year. We would like to acquire and bring one on towards the end of this year as well. We are also we've created another buy box for short-term rentals, being that we want to acquire one short-term rental in the Twin Cities area, where all of our long-term portfolio is, because we do like to come back periodically. It would be nice to have a property to stay at when we don't have a booking. And so we're evaluating that as well. So again, our strategy is really 1 to 2 properties a year here, as I still have kids in school, and we're going to get them through that messy middle, if you will. And then, my goal is really to be work optional and give back to the community by doing informationals like this. And then, I also ran a real estate meetup in the Twin Cities, and I handed it off to another great partner of mine. And now I'm joining other real estate investor meetups out here in San Diego.
Jacob, it's actually refreshing to hear that you're not looking to build an empire overnight. So many entrepreneurs or real estate investors, they want 500 units by the end of the year. And a lot of times those steps or those milestones are really not achievable, and they're really outlandish. So to hear a person say that their goal for this year is to close 1 or 2 properties per year is actually refreshing, and it's really good to have a person to just have a lower or reasonable expectation on what it is that they really want to go after. So yeah, good for you guys on that. If we could share with the audience a recent transaction that you guys have completed. So if you can go into detail as to how you guys located the property, how you guys funded it, how the business plan has been implemented, and maybe some challenges along the way.
Yeah, so I'll give you, again, the unit that we closed earlier this year. Again, we moved from Minneapolis out to San Diego in January. We took 2-3 months, got settled out here, which moving cross country can take a little while to get settled. But constantly we're monitoring our buy box, just kind of business as usual. We did have an agent reach out about a unit that was coming on market. Again, we work with a handful of real estate professionals. We are not agents ourselves, strictly investors. So we do not have direct access to the MLS, but we partner with others that do. We did locate a deal. Again, it's all about the underwriting, looking at numbers, seeing, what can actually be feasible. I would say our ideal right now is evaluating a lower purchase price for conventional mortgage loans, or we're looking at paying a little bit more if they're willing to essentially be the bank and either do, fund it, or, if there's some sort of subject to we could qualify for. This ended up being just a traditional loan. This has ended up being a portfolio loan. 25% down. We came up with that capital, put that down, and then we financed the rest at 7.5% interest, which isn't super attractive. It's not super exciting. These higher rates have, definitely taken some investors and put them onto the sidelines. We saw a lot of great potential with this property. And so we picked it up. And then being remote now, we did all this remotely, right? So I have an agent walking through, showing video of the property. I have them drawing up the purchase agreement, My wife, who's very hands-on in this business, flew out to Minneapolis, walked through the property as they agreed to our initial offer. And then, as she's doing that, right, she's taking video, sending it to me, and I'm pulling up my spreadsheet. I'm like, hey, we need all new lighting. We need new carpet upstairs. So we got to call Randy, my carpet guy. We're going to need new countertops. Hey, there's 3 bathrooms, so 3 toilets, et cetera. So we're just coming up with a game plan, figuring out what kind of costs we're signing ourselves up for, and then putting together a timeline as to how long this property is going to take before we can, list it and get a long-term tenant in there. So it ended up working out relatively well. I flew out there to do much of the DIY work myself for about a 2-week period, and then came back and had a punch list for all my local partners, my handyman, my carpet guy, couple of things that I didn't get wrapped up. So I outsourced those to my other partners. And then 2 weeks later, I flew back in for 1 weekend, and I had it shown and leased out right away. And then it was good to go. So just added it to our portfolio and put all of our systems in place.
Okay, so you guys found a property in Minneapolis. You partnered up to be able to get the thing to the finish line. So they needed 25% down. Are you guys doing burrs on these properties, or what's the strategy? Are you just holding it for 5 years? What is the end goal?
Yeah, so great question. You know what? I'll be honest with you, Eric. I wish I knew more about real estate investing when I first started in 2020, because I would have burred all of those properties. I did not. So these have all been traditional. This was also traditional, especially with higher interest rates and the ability to cash flow. So no, we do have a lot of trapped equity. And for us, that's okay. We're probably not going to touch our original set of portfolio properties because they have locked very low interest rates. And those debt notes are essentially an asset right now to us. It allows for a much better cash flow on some of our first properties. And so we're happy with that. Now, this particular property sitting at 7.5% interest, this just has opportunity, right? So in the future, it's going to be, hey, what is your payback time for a refinance? And if we see that rates drop enough to where we can essentially get back the origination fees and any other costs to refinance that within a 12-month period, then we'll probably start looking at, locking in a new debt structure on it.
And how do you guys go about underwriting these single-family residential long-term rental properties? Is there any secret sauce that you guys go after? Or are you looking at cash-on-cash returns? What exactly goes into your analysis?
Yeah, so that's a great question. My number one key point of metric here, and it's not probably talked about often enough or kind of in this particular way. But Rule 1 Investing, Phil Town, he's an author. He's actually written a book on it called Payback Time. And so our goal in what we do with our investing strategy is if something costs us, say, $70,000 to purchase a unit, our goal is to make sure that we have a payback time of less than 8 years, right? 10 is a stretch, but basically we have a long-term mindset. And so our strategy here is, hey, you can put capital in there. And this is when I calculate payback time, I'm really looking at the cash flow of the property. If I can cash flow that property enough to get our money back out of it in 8 to 10 years, typically we find that to be a satisfactory return on our investment. And so we go about it that way. But as far as underwriting the deal, there really is no secret sauce. I mean, there are different tools that you can use. There's different calculators, but it's what's your purchase price, what's your down payment, what's your interest rate, and now what are your expenses, right? You have taxes and insurance, you have HOA dues, you may have utilities, depends on what kind of unit you have. But you just factor all those in and you have to figure out, okay, what is your cash flow? And it's very interesting. It's been rather thin and you've probably seen a lot more people waiting on the sidelines. However, there are more properties available and any offer that you put out there right now is actually being looked at. So this may be an opportunity to actually get some properties that are I don't buy alligator properties where you're losing cash flow on a monthly basis, but they may not be super cash flow positive for the first couple of years or until you refinance. And for us, that's okay.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear about the method that you guys use as far as a 8 to 10 year payback period, because that's not really spoken about a ton amongst most investors or thought leaders. But that is really valuable to be able to know when you can get to the end of capturing your return or your cash back. So, how about tenants? Have you guys had any like heartache dealing with tenants in the time that you guys have first began up to current? And what kind of methods are you guys using to make sure that you're getting really good tenants within your properties?
Yeah. So, property management is probably the number one secret sauce of success factor in this business. So again, it's all about kind of fine tuning your systems of making sure that you're bringing in good people. I would say before you get started, think about what type of customer you want, right? What is your preferred customer, your demographic that you're kind of targeting? And for us, and you also need to match that demographic with what type of product you're coming out with. And so for us, every time we bought a rental property, we gave it the, full cosmetic remodel, right? We tore out laminate, put in granite countertops. We put in all new lighting, luxury vinyl plank flooring. We made these properties nice. We made them B plus, A minus nice. And then we marketed them as such. So we charge a little bit more for our properties. And when you do that, and you have a very good pre-screening qualification, form in place, you actually get to a much better tenant pool. We run everything through Zillow Rental Manager. I don't think it's talked about enough at how convenient it is. We do all of our background checks, screenings, financial deposits through Zillow. And that is, again, stick with your criteria. You cannot discriminate on tenants, but you need to have your criteria and hold those true to form. When we originally started, we didn't know if we wanted to accept pets in our property. But again, that eliminates about half of your renter pool, right? And so we quickly came to these realizations of what is and what is not in our tenant profile. And as I mentioned, our particular demographic are kind of like the millennials that don't want to own and are super happy renting, or they are pseudo or nearing retirement and they just sold a really big house and they don't want a lot of maintenance. And so we're getting some of those pseudo retirees also taking some of our rental properties, which is great. They tend to be low issues. And at the end of the day, because we've remodeled our properties before we even place tenants, we tend to have much less service management calls that we have to facilitate. But at the end of the day, you're going to have tenants that move in, you're going to have tenants that move out, you're going to have property turnover, and you just need to have a realistic expectation of that process.
I think qualifying is very important to head off or hedge yourself against a high vacancy or a problematic tenant that's going to come in and cause you a lot of headache or cause their neighbors a lot of headache. And so if you do a really good screening job, you can hedge yourself against running across a bad tenant. And so, Jacob, thanks for sharing that property and that transaction and those details surrounding that property. We're going to turn the page and go to what we call our Moonlight Coaching Round. And typically what we ask our guests is a few questions in regards to some coaching questions. If you could hold your response to between 1 to 2 minutes per question, that'd be great.
Yeah, no worries. Let's jump into it.
First question I have for you is, what do you think every new real estate investor should know before investing in real estate?
I probably is said too often, but just know that this is not mailbox money. It's not passive. You're going to have to roll up your sleeves, whether or not you outsource your property management. You just need to have a realistic expectation as to your involvement in the business. And two, real estate investing should only happen after you have your financial house in order. And what I mean by that is, Do not try to walk into buying your first rental property when you have $6,000 of credit card debt and unnecessary auto debt, and you're just not set in a position to where you can actually come to the table with some capital and to manage your budget personally. I think that that's a super important element here. If you want to be a real estate investor, get things taken care of before you start investing. It's going to make your life a lot easier.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's so many people that push the narrative that you don't need any money to invest in real estate. Well, there are certain segments or certain niches that you do need to have some capital available for, or either access to capital in order to make sure that you're going to be positioned in a really good place to be successful within your real estate investing career. The next question I have for you is, knowing what you know now, what kind of advice would you give a person attempting to get where you are within your real estate journey about balancing business and life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, one step at a time, right? You only eat an elephant one bite at a time. And so really don't try to fall into the, Instagram trap of all these influencers saying, hey, you want to go from one property to 500 properties, and I did it in 3 years. It's just so unrealistic. I think the best advice you can have as an aspiring real estate investor is start with a single family home, because it's going to teach you how a home actually operates. You have electrical, you have plumbing, you have walls, you have lighting, you have just things you're going to need to know, appliances, etc. Things are going to break. You're going to have to understand how do you maintain and kind of address those issues. So I think the best advice is to just start slow, always be educating yourself, and then surround yourself by a like-minded community. I would say get involved with the local real estate meetup. And that way you can get the encouragement that you need to see it through the challenging times. And one of the bigger challenging times is when you get your first property, you remodel it, you put it on market, and you don't hear anything from anybody for like 2 or 3 days. You get like emotional, right? You're going to need a support buddy that says, hey, just be calm. It's going to happen. You just sometimes have to be patient and try to set emotions aside in this business. So hopefully that's helpful advice for the listeners.
Yeah, the emotional piece I can definitely resonate with. I did a flip and I did it around Christmas. We completed it and I listed the property and received no showings. And I didn't know exactly what to make of that. I actually began to panic because I had hard money on the property. But the first of the year set in, the holidays got behind us, and then out of nowhere, there was multiple showings beginning to get booked, and I was under contract soon after that. So you definitely can get emotional about things, and it's good to have someone to talk you off the ledge, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question I have for you is, if a person had minimal amounts of time, no money or experience, but they wanted to start a business like yours, what steps would you recommend for them to take to start and scale a business like yours?
Yeah, I think the best advice you can have there to start and scale a business like our portfolio here is to really find yourself a solid mentor. Again, you need to self-teach. You need to learn and consume, some podcasts, some books, get into a small group of other like-minded real estate investors. But I've ran a real estate investor meetup, and the people that generally go there are there because they really like it and they're willing to share with you their resources. And much of the coaching that I've done is really, again, get your financial order and your financials in order, and then kind of look at what chapter you're at in life. A lot of aspiring real estate investors tend to be of a younger generation. And what I tell them is start with what fits your chapter of life. And for a lot of them, that's house hacking. Purchasing their first property and renting out by the room, or renting out, one side of a duplex. So I point them in those directions, but really it's probably get ready to put 5 to 10% down on your first property. And you can always go to friends and family to partner or to kind of provide some additional funds. But I would say take it slow and easy, build up from your W-2. Again, work that margin in your life to where you can set money aside in order to essentially purchase your first property. And once you get that first property, if it is a house hack, do not sell that property when you go and buy your next. Just, rent out the rest of the bedrooms or the other side and continue to scale your property portfolio that way.
Okay, great answer. The last question I have for you is, what is the greatest coaching advice you could give to a new person about knowing their numbers? That could be knowing their KPIs, knowing their taxes, income coming in, expenses going out. What kind of coaching advice could you give to a person about knowing their numbers?
Yeah. So I would, and it's funny because I just went through and sharpened my pencil on all of my numbers in my business. I would say just be mindful of hidden costs and hidden expenses, but try to do it the legitimate way, right? Go get yourself a business entity if possible. Set up a dedicated business entity checking account with a local credit union or financial institution. Keep your finances separate from your personal life. But when you're actually running those numbers, the best thing you can do is run them on your own from what you've learned, and then go to your mentor or someone in your circle that has experience doing this and say, hey, what am I missing? Because there's been several, other real estate investors, and I've gone to others saying, hey, this is how I underwrote this. What am I missing? And undoubtedly, they're going to identify something that's going to bring value to you, that's going to help you either gain in your confidence of, putting an offer forward, or give you pause and have you redo your numbers because your assumptions may not have been in good shape. So I would say that's probably the best way to go about it is underwrite it, have somebody check your math. Measure twice, cut once. Yep.
I agree with you. To have a person that you can bounce things off of that is very knowledgeable about analysis and underwriting, it is absolutely pivotal. I've got multiple people like that I could trust and rely on to be able to run things through and can make sure that I'm still doing things and that my numbers are lining up correctly. So I think that's a great answer and great answers to each one of those coaching questions. Before we wrap things up, we always like to have our guests share and give a recommendation for either a personal development book or either a business development book.
Sure. So they say in real estate, you make your money when you purchase the property, either through the purchase of the property and also through the property management. So my recommendation of a book really is The ABCs of Property Management by Kim McElroy. Honestly, it's just, you need to know how to interact with your customer, whether it be a long-term tenant, short-term tenant, midterm. And you need to understand, that they are purchasing a service from you, and that you are signing a contract with them to deliver on that service. And really the elements of property management are just super key to being successful in this space. And this is where you go from being passive to being active. And so there's a degree in which sometimes this can be outsourced. But as you're getting started out from 1 to 4 doors, I really strongly encourage people to be their own property management.
Yeah, I actually hadn't heard a whole lot of recommendations for property management books, but if you think about it, that is the operations. That's the business plan. That's what's actually going to make you succeed within your property. And so I think that's a really solid recommendation. I'll definitely have to look into that myself. Hey, Jacob, thanks for coming on to the show. You have been a wealth of knowledge. You provided some significant insight, and you allowed us to peek into exactly how you got started building a business, but still being able to build a really good sized portfolio. If someone wanted to connect with you, do you have a preferred method?
Yeah, so folks can reach out to me on Instagram. It's just at Bridging Tenants, spells just the way it sounds. Or you can email me at bridgingtenants@gmail.com. Again, I really value and really enjoy this newfound career. It provides a lot of fulfillment and passion for me. And so I always love to give back to my other aspiring real estate investors. So again, if you're looking for a template or you're looking for some, double checking of your assumptions, feel free to reach out to me. I always try to make time for those also looking to emulate and kind of do this as well.
Yeah, great job, and good for you for just being a go-giver, looking to provide value and give back any kind of way you can. And hey, Jacob, once again, we appreciate you coming on to the show, and we'd love to have you back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. It's been great.